The call log on Elena's phone showed 47 missed calls, 47 desperate attempts to reach the man who swore to protect her. While Elena Vance was lying on a cold operating table at St. Jude's Hospital, fighting through a catastrophic placental abruption that threatened to kill both her and her unborn son, her husband Marcus wasn't stuck in traffic. He wasn't in a dead zone. He was 3 miles away popping a $500 bottle of Dom Perignon with a woman half his age. But Marcus didn't know one thing: the nurses were documenting everything, and when the police finally dragged him into the family court 3 months later, he thought he was fighting for custody. He had no idea he was walking into a trap that would cost him his freedom. This is the story of how a cheating husband's arrogance became his own prison sentence. The rain was hammering against the bay windows of the colonial-style house in Bellevue, Washington. It was 10:15 p.m. on a Tuesday in November. Inside the house was silent, save for the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the foyer. Elena Vance, 32 years old and 36 weeks pregnant, sat on the edge of the beige sectional sofa. She gripped her phone so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The screen illuminated her face, pale, sweaty, and etched with a fear that was rapidly turning into panic. She had been feeling off all day, a dull ache in her lower back that she had attributed to the weight of the baby. But in the last hour, the ache had sharpened into a rhythmic, tearing pain that radiated down her legs. She hit the speed dial for hubby. Ring, ring, ring. Hi, you've reached Marcus. I'm crushing it in a meeting right now, or closing a deal. Leave a message. The voicemail beep mocked her. Marcus, Elena said, her voice trembling. Please pick up. The contractions are 5 minutes apart. I think something is wrong. There's blood. Please, Marcus. And she hung up and stared at the empty hallway. Marcus was a high-performing real estate developer. The Shark of Seattle, they called him. He had told her that morning while adjusting his silk tie in the mirror that he had a crucial dinner with potential investors from Dubai. Do not call unless the house is burning down, Elle, he had said, kissing her forehead absently. This deal pays for the baby's college. I need total focus. Elena tried to breathe through the next wave of pain. It hit her like a sledgehammer, doubling her over. She gasped, clutching her stomach. This wasn't like the birthing classes described. This was sharp, violent. She checked her Life 360 app. She and Marcus shared their locations, a habit from when they first married 5 years ago. Usually he paused it during confidential site visits, claiming it drained his battery. Tonight, the dot was active. It wasn't at the downtown steakhouse where he said the meeting was. The dot was hovering over the Velvet Rope, an exclusive members-only nightclub in the Capitol Hill district. Elena stared at the screen, her mind trying to reject what her eyes were seeing. Maybe the investors wanted to go clubbing. Maybe the GPS was glitching. Another contraction hit this one so severe it knocked the phone from her hand. She felt a warm, gushing wetness between her legs. She looked down. It wasn't just water. It was dark, heavy crimson. Panic, cold and primal, seized her chest. This was a placental abruption. She had read about it. The placenta was detaching too early. The baby's oxygen was being cut off. She couldn't wait for Marcus. She couldn't wait for anyone. Dragging herself across the hardwood floor, leaving a terrifying trail behind her, she retrieved her phone. Her fingers, slippery and shaking, bypassed Marcus this time. She dialed 911. Emergency? The operator's voice was calm. I'm bleeding, Elena whispered, tears finally spilling over. I'm 36 weeks. My husband isn't here. Please save my baby. As the distant wail of sirens began to pierce the storm outside, Elena sent one last text to Marcus. "I'm dying. We are dying. St. Jude's. Now." The text status changed to read instantly, but no typing bubble appeared. No call came back. Just silence. At St. Jude's Medical Center, the atmosphere was chaotic but controlled. Dr. Eris, the on-call obstetrician, was barking orders as they wheeled Elena's gurney down the fluorescent hallway. "Fetal heart rate is dropping. We're at 60 beats per minute. We need to crash section now," Dr. Eris yelled. Elena was fading in and out of consciousness. The lights overhead blurred into streaks of white. "Marcus," she mumbled into the oxygen mask. "Is he here?" A nurse named Brenda, a veteran with 30 years of experience, gripped Elena's hand. She looked around the room. There was no husband, no partner, just a terrified woman fighting for her life alone. "We're going to take care of you, honey," Brenda said, her voice tight. "Don't you worry about him right now. You worry about you." While Elena was being prepped for surgery, her sister Maya burst through the double doors of the ER waiting room. Maya was 2 years younger than Elena, fierce protective, and a paralegal who knew how to handle a crisis. "Where is she?" Maya demanded, rushing up to the front desk. "Elena Vance, my sister." "She's in emergency surgery," the receptionist said gently. "Are you the husband?" "No, I'm the sister. The husband is—" Maya paused, pulling out her phone. She had seen Elena's group text. She knew Marcus wasn't there. "The husband is missing." Maya sat in the waiting room, her leg bouncing nervously. She dialed Marcus. Straight to voicemail. She dialed his office line. Closed. She opened Instagram. Marcus was smart. He never posted when he was working late. But Marcus was also arrogant. He surrounded himself with people who loved to show off. Maya went to the search bar and typed in the location Elena had mentioned in her last text to Maya, the Velvet Rope. She clicked on the location tag to see the latest stories posted by strangers in the last hour. Click. A video of a DJ. Click. A video of bottle service girls with sparklers. Click. Maya froze. The video had been posted 12 minutes ago by a user named @JessicaJules22. The caption read, "Daddy buying out the bar tonight." Blessed. Winning. In the background of the video, sitting in a plush leather booth, was a man in a charcoal gray suit. His tie was undone. He was throwing his head back in laughter, holding a cigar in one hand and a shot glass in the other. Draped over his shoulder was a woman in a skin-tight red dress, Jessica. She was whispering something in his ear that made him smirk. It was Marcus. Maya felt a rage so pure, so hot, it almost blinded her. Her sister was being cut open upstairs, bleeding out, terrified, and Marcus was playing sugar daddy to an Instagram model 3 miles away. Maya looked at the time. 11:15 p.m. She stood up. She didn't go to the elevator to see Elena. She knew Elena was in the hands of doctors. She needed to handle the disease that was Marcus Vance. She walked out of the hospital into the rain and got into her car. "Siri," she said, her voice deadly calm. "Directions to the Velvet Rope." The Velvet Rope was thumping with deep house music. The bouncer at the front was a wall of muscle, holding a clipboard. "Guest list only," he grunted as Maya marched up. She was wearing sweatpants and a raincoat, looking nothing like the glammed-up clientele inside. "I'm not a guest," Maya said, reaching into her purse. She didn't pull out an ID. She pulled out her badge from the district attorney's office. She was a paralegal, but the badge looked official enough in the dark. "I need to speak to Marcus Vance. It is a medical emergency involving his next of kin." The bouncer hesitated. "Vance? He's in the VIP section. I can't let you in dressed like that." You can let me in, or you can explain to the police why you obstructed a notification of critical injury. Maya lied smoothly. Your choice. The rope unhooked. Maya moved through the crowd like a shark. The smell of expensive perfume and stale alcohol filled her nose. She scanned the VIP booths raised above the dance floor. And there he was. Marcus looked even worse in person than on the video. His face was flushed with liquor, his eyes glassy. The woman in the red dress, Jessica, was sitting on his lap now, feeding him a strawberry from a fruit platter. The table was littered with empty bottles of Grey Goose and Ace of Spades. Maya climbed the 3 steps to the VIP section. The music was deafening. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She walked right up to the table, grabbed the ice bucket filled with melting water, and upended the entire thing onto Marcus's lap. The music seemed to stop as Marcus shrieked, jumping up. The ice water soaked his custom Italian trousers. Jessica squealed and scrambled backward. "What the hell?" Marcus roared, wiping water off his pants. He looked up, ready to fight the intruder. His eyes locked on Maya. The color drained from his face faster than the blood had drained from his wife. "Maya," he stammered. What are you doing here? I'm in a meeting." "A meeting?" Maya shouted over the bass. She pointed at Jessica, whose red dress was now wet and clinging awkwardly. "Is she the investor, or is she the ROI?" "You're making a scene," Marcus hissed, stepping forward, trying to use his height to intimidate her. "Get out. I'll deal with Elena later. I'm working." "Elena is in surgery, you son of a bitch," Maya screamed, and this time people turned to look. The DJ actually lowered the volume, sensing the drama. "She's dying. Your son is dying. And you're here with her." Marcus blinked the alcohol, slowing his processing speed. "Don't be dramatic. Elena always overreacts. It's probably Braxton Hicks." "She had a placental abruption, Marcus. They are cutting her open right now." "Jessica." The mistress looked from Maya to Marcus. Her eyes widened. "You said your wife was crazy and ex-military," she said, her voice shrill. "You didn't say she was pregnant." "Shut up, Jess," Marcus snapped. He turned back to Maya. "Look, I can't leave right now. I haven't settled the tab. It's complicated. Tell the doctors to wait." "Tell the doctors to wait?" Maya laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You don't get it. You're done." Maya pulled out her phone and hit record. She panned the camera over the table, the bottles, the girl, Marcus's wet pants, his panicked face. "Say hi to the judge, Marcus," she said. Marcus lunged for the phone. "Give me that." He grabbed Maya's wrist, twisting it hard. Maya yelped. That was his second mistake, because the velvet rope had off-duty police officers working security detail, and one of them, Officer Miller, had been watching the interaction closely. As soon as Marcus put his hands on Maya, Officer Miller vaulted the railing of the VIP section. "Hands off!" Miller shouted. Marcus, fueled by adrenaline and too much vodka, shoved the officer back. "This is a family matter. Back off, rent-a-cop." Officer Miller didn't back off. In one fluid motion, he spun Marcus around and slammed him face first onto the table, scattering the expensive champagne glasses. "Marcus Vance," Miller stated, pulling out handcuffs. "You are under arrest for assault and public intoxication." "You can't arrest me. I'm Marcus Vance. I own this town," Marcus screamed, struggling as the cuffs clicked tight. "You have the right to remain silent," Miller droned, yanking Marcus upright. As they dragged him out of the club past the staring crowd and the horrified Mistress, Marcus looked back at Maya. "You ruined everything," he screamed. Maya stood there, shaking, holding her wrist. She looked at Jessica, who was trying to make herself small in the corner. "If I were you," Maya said to the mistress, "I'd run. He's got no money left." Maya turned and ran back to her car. She had to get back to the hospital. She had to see if there was anyone left to save. The cell in the Seattle City Jail smelled of industrial cleaner and dried vomit. It was a smell that Marcus Vance, a man who wore $300 cologne and only flew business class, had never experienced. He woke up on a metal cot, his head throbbing with a hangover that felt like a drill pressing into his temples. For a moment, in the disoriented haze of waking up, he reached out for the Egyptian cotton sheets of his king-sized bed. His hand hit cold concrete. The memories of the previous night came crashing back like a landslide. The nightclub, the music, Jessica's red dress, the water, the police officer. Elena. Marcus sat up, panic finally piercing his narcissistic armor. He checked his wrist for his Rolex, but it was gone, logged into an evidence bag along with his wallet and belt. He felt naked, vulnerable, and furious. "Guard!" Marcus yelled, his voice hoarse. "I need my phone call. Do you know who I am?" A heavy-set officer walked by, not even glancing at him. "Sit down, Vance. You'll get your turn when the processing sergeant gets coffee." It took 3 hours before Marcus was allowed to use the phone. He didn't call Elena. He didn't call the hospital. He dialed the number he knew by heart, Charles Sterling, his corporate attorney and fixer. "Charles, get me out of here," Marcus hissed into the receiver. "I was assaulted by a cop. I'm going to sue the city for false imprisonment." There was a long pause on the other end. Charles's voice was icy. "Marcus, do you have any idea what time it is? It's 7 Huzru a.m. I've been fielding calls from the press since 4 Huzru a.m. The video is online." "What video?" Marcus's stomach dropped. "Some girl named Maya posted a reel. It has 2 million views, Marcus. Sash CEO arrested is trending in Seattle. You screaming about your meeting while soaking wet. It's not a good look for the investors." "Fix it, Charles. Get it taken down." "I can't scrub the internet, Marcus. But that's not your biggest problem. I just called the precinct to arrange your bail. You have a temporary restraining order filed against you." "Restraining order from who, the cop?" "No," Charles said, his voice dropping an octave. "From your wife." "Elena filed an emergency order through her sister an hour ago. You are barred from St. Jude's Hospital. You can't see her, and you can't see the child." "The child?" Marcus leaned his forehead against the graffitied wall. Did she have it?" "Yes, Marcus, a boy. He's in the NICU, critical condition, and you're in a cage." Charles sighed. "I'll have you out by noon. Go to a hotel. Do not go home. Do not go to the hospital. If you violate that order, I can't help you." 5 miles away, the silence in the neonatal intensive care unit NICU was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Elena sat in a wheelchair next to an incubator that looked more like a spaceship than a crib. Inside, a tiny, fragile creature fought for every breath. Wires were taped to his translucent chest. A tube ran down his throat. His name was Leo. He weighed 4 pounds, 3 ounces. Elena looked like she had been through a war. Her skin was gray, her eyes sunken with dark circles. The emergency C-section had been brutal. She had lost 2 liters of blood. The doctors had almost lost her twice on the table. "He's a fighter," a soft voice said. Elena looked up to see Dr. Eris standing there, holding a clipboard. "He stabilized an hour ago, Elena. His oxygen levels are coming up. The placental abruption was severe. If you had arrived 10 minutes later, neither of you would be here." Elena nodded, tears streaming down her face, hot and silent. "Did he come?" she whispered. She hated herself for asking. Dr. Eris looked uncomfortable. She glanced at Maya, who was standing in the corner of the room like a sentinel, arms crossed. "No," Maya answered for the doctor. She walked over and knelt beside Elena's wheelchair. "He didn't come, Elle. He's in jail." Elena stared at her sister. Jail, why? Maya took Elena's hand. Because when I went to find him, he was drinking champagne with a 20-year-old girl, and when the police told him to stop assaulting me, he fought them. Elena closed her eyes. The physical pain of the incision across her abdomen was nothing compared to the sensation of her heart shattering in her chest. For months, she had ignored the signs. The late nights, the sudden password changes on his phone, the way he criticized her appearance as her belly grew. She had told herself it was stress, that he was working for their future. He was with her, while I was dying. Elena asked, her voice barely audible. Yes, Maya said, not sugarcoating it. And he's going to try to spin this. He's going to say he was working or networking. But I have it on video L. I have the proof. Elena looked back at Leo. Her son. He looked so much like Marcus, the shape of his nose, the curve of his brow. But Marcus wasn't here. He hadn't held him. He hadn't named him. Something inside Elena hardened. It was a cold steel resolve that replaced the fear. She reached through the incubator port and touched Leo's tiny hand with the tip of her finger. Maya, Elena said, her voice gaining a terrifying strength. Call the lawyer, not the family estate lawyer. Find me a shark. Find me someone who eats men like Marcus for breakfast. Maya smiled a grim, satisfied expression. I already called Victoria Stone. She's on her way. 3 weeks had passed. The rain in Seattle hadn't stopped matching the dreary atmosphere inside the Vance residence. Elena had been discharged a week ago, but Leo was still in the NICU, growing stronger every day. Elena sat at the mahogany desk in Marcus's home office. The house felt too big, too empty. Marcus was staying at the Four Seasons downtown. Charles had advised him to give her space while they worked on a plea deal for the assault charge. But Marcus hadn't been silent. Flowers arrived daily. Huge, expensive bouquets of white lilies, Elena's favorite, or so he thought. They were actually tulips. Notes were attached with scrawled apologies. I was stressed. I made a mistake. Let me come home. I miss my family. Elena swept a vase of lilies off the desk with her arm. The glass shattered against the wall water and stems exploding everywhere. She didn't flinch. She wasn't looking at flowers. She was looking at a forensic audit of their finances. Victoria Stone, the divorce attorney Maya had hired, was not cheap. But she was effective. She was a woman in her 50s with a bob cut sharp enough to cut glass and a reputation for destroying unfaithful executives. Victoria had instructed Elena to get access to everything before Marcus realized she was digging. The college fund, Elena muttered to herself, staring at the bank statement on the computer screen. When they found out Elena was pregnant, they had opened a high-yield savings account. They had deposited $150,000 money from the sale of Elena's grandmother's property. It was meant to be untouchable. It was for Leo's future. The balance on the screen read $4,500. Elena felt the room spin. She clicked on the transaction history. Withdrawal, $20,000. Wire transfer to Emerald Consulting. Withdrawal, $15,000. Wire transfer to Emerald Consulting. Withdrawal, $50,000. Cashier's check. The dates corresponded perfectly with Marcus's business trips to Miami and Vegas over the last 6 months. Elena typed Emerald Consulting LLC into the State Business Registry search bar. Her fingers trembled over the keyboard. The search result loaded. Owner Jessica Miller. Registered agent Marcus Vance. He hadn't just cheated on her. He had stolen her inheritance. He had stolen her son's future to fund a shell company for his mistress. The front door opened downstairs. Elena froze. Marcus wasn't allowed here. The restraining order was still active. She heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. "Elena," Marcus's voice boomed. "Elena, I know you're up there. The code to the alarm changed. Seriously." Elena grabbed the file folder of bank statements. She stood up, adrenaline flooding her system, masking the ache in her healing abdomen. Marcus appeared in the doorway. He looked thinner, ragged. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was in jeans and a hoodie. He looked desperate. "Get out," Elena said, her voice steady. "The police are on their way. I triggered the silent panic button when the door opened." "I just want to talk." Marcus stepped into the room, his hands raised in a mock surrender that felt aggressive. "This has gone too far, Elle. The lawyers, the restraining order. You're reacting emotionally. It's the hormones." "Hormones?" Elena laughed, a sound that lacked any joy. She threw the folder at him. Papers fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. Marcus looked down. He saw the bank logo. He saw the words, Emerald Consulting. His face went pale. "I borrowed it," he stammered, the lie coming out automatically. "It was an investment. I was going to put it back with interest next month when the Bellevue deal closed." "You gave it to her," Elena said, walking around the desk, advancing on him. "My grandmother's money. Leo's money. You gave it to the girl you were with while our son was suffocating inside me." "It's not what it looks like. She was blackmailing me." Marcus tried to pivot, his eyes darting around the room. "She threatened to tell you, so I paid her off to protect our family. I did it for us." "You are a liar," Elena said, stopping 3 feet from him. "And you are a thief, and you are a stranger to me." "You can't prove theft." Marcus sneered, his mask slipping. The desperate husband vanished, replaced by the arrogant businessman. "It's a joint account. I have legal access to those funds. You can't touch me for that." "Maybe not criminally," Elena said. "But in divorce court, Victoria says it's dissipation of marital assets. She says I get everything. The house, the cars, the pension, and full custody." "You won't get custody." Marcus laughed, cruel and low. "You have a history of depression, Elena. Remember postpartum with the miscarriage 2 years ago. I have the records. I'll paint you as unstable. I'll say you're unfit. I'll take the kid, and I'll have Jessica raise him." The threat hung in the air, toxic and heavy. He was going to use her grief against her. He was going to use the miscarriage, the darkest moment of her life, where he had held her and promised to support her, as a weapon in court. Elena looked at him, and for the first time she didn't see a husband. She saw a target. "Get out, Marcus," she said softly. "Because if you're not off the property in 2 minutes, the police will arrest you for violating the order. And this time, you won't get bail." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Marcus cursed. He glared at her one last time. "This isn't over. I always win, Elena. Remember that. The shark always wins." He turned and fled down the stairs. Elena walked to the window and watched him run to his car, a rental sedan, not his usual Porsche. She watched him speed away just as the patrol car turned onto the street. She picked up her phone and dialed Victoria Stone. "He was here," Elena said. "Did he threaten you?" Victoria asked. "Yes, and he admitted to the money. But Victoria, he threatened to take Leo. He threatened to use my medical history." "Let him try," Victoria said, and Elena could hear the smile in her voice. "He just made a fatal error. Did you record it?" Elena looked at the bookshelf behind where Marcus had been standing. Nestled between 2 books was a small, blinking black device. A nanny cam she had installed yesterday, anticipating exactly this. "Every word," Elena said. "Video and audio." "Good," Victoria said. "Bring that to my office tomorrow. We're not just going to divorce him, Elena. We're going to dismantle him." But Marcus had one more card to play. He wasn't going to wait for court. As he drove away furious and humiliated, he dialed a number from a burner phone he'd bought at a gas station. "It's me," Marcus said into the phone. Plan B. Call CPS. Tell them there's an unstable mother at 42 Oak Drive. Tell them she's neglecting the infant. Make it anonymous. Marcus hung up and smiled. If he couldn't have the family, nobody would. The knock on the door came at 8:00 a.m. the next morning. It wasn't the aggressive pounding of Marcus. It was the polite, firm knock of authority. Elena was in the kitchen pumping breast milk to take to the hospital. She froze. The nanny cam was still recording. She wiped her hands, took a deep breath, and opened the door. 2 women stood there, holding clipboards and wearing ID lanyards. Mrs. Elena Vance, the older woman asked. I'm Janice, and this is Sarah from Child Protective Services. We received a report regarding the welfare of a child in this residence. We need to come in. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Marcus had actually done it. He had called CPS on the mother of his child. You can come in, Elena said, stepping aside. She didn't look scared. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were flinty. The social workers walked into the pristine living room. They looked around, checking for hazards. The report alleges that you are mentally unstable, and that the infant is being neglected, left in soiled diapers for hours, and that there is alcohol abuse in the home, Janice said, her pen hovering over the paper. Where is the baby, Mrs. Vance? Elena walked to the kitchen counter and picked up her car keys and a hospital visitor pass. That is an excellent question, Elena said quietly. And it proves exactly who made that call. Janice frowned. Ma'am, my son Leo. Elena said, her voice trembling slightly with suppressed rage, is 3 weeks old. He was born prematurely via emergency C-section due to placental abruption. He is currently intubated in the NICU at St. Jude's Medical Center. He has never spent a single second inside this house. The 2 social workers exchanged a look of pure shock. Sarah checked her notes. The reporter stated the child was crying in the crib upstairs. There is a crib upstairs, Elena said. It's empty. Would you like to see it? She led them to the nursery. It was a beautiful room, painted soft yellow, with a pile of unopened diapers and a pristine empty crib. The silence in the room was deafening. The person who called you, Elena said, looking at the empty crib, is my estranged husband. He doesn't know the baby isn't here because he has never visited him. Not once. Janice closed her binder with a snap. Her face had shifted from suspicion to sympathy, and then to professional anger. Mrs. Vance filing a false report to harass a spouse is a felony. We will be documenting this as unfounded and malicious. We are done here, and I will be forwarding this report to the family court judge. As the CPS workers left, apologizing profusely, Elena's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Usually she wouldn't answer, but today she felt invincible. Hello? Is this Elena? The voice was female, shaky, and young. Elena recognized it instantly from the video Maya had shown her. It was Jessica, the Mistress. What do you want? Elena asked, her hand gripping the phone so tight it hurt. If you're calling for Marcus, tell him the CPS stunt failed. I'm not calling for Marcus. Jessica sniffled. I'm calling because he locked me out of the condo. Elena blinked. What? The condo he rented for me. The locks are changed. And the bank account, the one with the money from your grandmother. He drained it this morning. He told me he needs it for legal fees. He told me I'm on my own. Elena let out a short, dark laugh. He threw you under the bus. I'm surprised it took him this long. I have nothing, Jessica sobbed. He promised me he was leaving you. He said you were cold and unloving. I didn't know about the baby until that night at the club. I swear. I don't care what you knew, Elena said coldly. You spent my son's college fund on bottle service. I know, and I'm sorry, but I have something you might want. Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper. Marcus keeps a second phone for his off-book deals. Real estate bribes the transfers to offshore accounts to hide money from you. I cloned the SIM card a month ago because I thought he was cheating on me. Elena stopped breathing for a second. This was the smoking gun. This was the nuclear option. Why are you telling me this? Because he called me trash this morning, Jessica said, her voice hardening. And because I want to see him burn. Meet me at my lawyer's office in 1 hour, Elena said. Bring the phone. The King County Superior Courthouse was a fortress of limestone and granite, a place where fortunes were divided and futures were decided. On this Tuesday morning, Courtroom 4B was overflowing. The story of the clubbing CEO and the abandoned wife had leaked from the local gossip blogs to the national news cycle. The public gallery was packed shoulder to shoulder with reporters, curious onlookers, and former employees of Marcus Vance who had come to watch the shark finally get hunted. Marcus sat at the defense table, adjusting his silk cuffs. He looked impeccable. He had spent the last 3 weeks constructing a narrative of a misunderstood, hard-working provider. His suit was navy blue, trustworthy, authoritative. His hair was perfectly coiffed. He leaned over to his attorney, Charles Sterling, a man who charged $1,000 an hour to make problems disappear. Look at her, Marcus whispered, tilting his head toward the plaintiff's table. She looks tired. She's going to fold, Charles. She doesn't have the stomach for a fight. Across the aisle, Elena Vance did look tired, but it wasn't the fatigue of weakness. It was the exhaustion of a soldier who had been in the trenches. She wore a simple white sheath dress, unadorned by jewelry, except for a small locket containing a picture of baby Leo. She sat next to Victoria Stone, her attorney. Victoria was the opposite of Charles Sterling. Where he was oily and loud, she was still and sharp like a scalpel, waiting to make an incision. Don't look at him, Victoria murmured to Elena, arranging her files with geometric precision. He wants to intimidate you. He wants you to react. Today you are ice. I'm not afraid of him anymore, Elena replied softly. And it was true. The fear had burned away in the NICU, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. All rise, the bailiff bellowed, his voice bouncing off the high mahogany walls. The door behind the bench opened, and the Honorable Judge Patricia Harrison swept into the room. Judge Harrison was a legend in family court. She was a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen every lie a spouse could tell. She didn't tolerate theatrics, and she despised wasting time. She took her seat, arranged her robe, and peered over her reading glasses at the packed room. This is the matter of Vance v. Vance, she announced, her voice dry. We are here to address the emergency motion for full custody filed by the plaintiff, the motion to dissolve the temporary restraining order filed by the defendant, and the matter of asset dissipation. I have read the briefs. Mr. Sterling, you may proceed with your opening. Charles Sterling stood up, buttoning his jacket. He walked to the center of the well, projecting his voice for the reporters in the back row. Your Honor, Sterling began, his tone dripping with practiced sincerity. My client, Marcus Vance, is a man who has been vilified by a viral moment. Yes, he was at a business meeting at a nightclub on the night his wife went into labor. Was it poor timing? Yes. Was it a crime? No. But what has happened since is a travesty of justice. He gestured theatrically toward Marcus, who hung his head in a display of rehearsed shame. Mr. Vance has been barred from seeing his newborn son. He has been locked out of his own home. He has been the victim of a smear campaign orchestrated by his wife's sister. We are here today to ask for sanity. Mr. Vance is a loving, capable father. We request that the restraining order be dismissed immediately and that a 50-50 custody schedule be implemented. Furthermore, the allegations of theft are simply a misunderstanding of complex corporate accounting. Judge Harrison made a note on her pad, her face unreadable. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Ms. Stone. Victoria Stone stood up. She didn't walk to the center. She stood firmly at her table. Your Honor, we are not here to debate timing. We are here to discuss character criminal intent and the safety of a fragile infant. Mr. Sterling calls his client a loving father. We intend to prove that Mr. Vance sees his son not as a person, but as a pawn. We intend to prove that while my client was fighting for her life, Mr. Vance was funding a second life. And we intend to prove that he is a danger to the child. Strong words, Ms. Stone, Judge Harrison said. Call your first witness. I call Marcus Vance to the stand, Victoria said. A ripple of surprise went through the room. Calling the defendant first was an aggressive move. Marcus smirked. He had been prepped for this. He stood up confident he could charm the old judge. He took the oath sitting in the witness box with the posture of a CEO chairing a board meeting. Mr. Vance, Victoria began holding a piece of paper. On the night of November 14th, you were at the Velvet Rope nightclub. Who were you with? I was meeting with potential investors, Marcus lied smoothly. And an associate named Jessica Miller. An associate, Victoria repeated. And what is the nature of your business with Ms. Miller? She is a consultant. She helps with networking. I see. And is it standard practice for your networking consultants to sit on your lap while you consume champagne? Objection, Sterling shouted. Relevance. Overruled, the judge said, leaning forward. Answer the question. Marcus clenched his jaw. It was a loud environment. We were close to hear each other. It was innocent. Victoria nodded, pacing slightly. Let's talk about finances, Mr. Vance. Are you aware that the joint savings account designated for your son's education was emptied 3 weeks ago? I moved those funds to a higher-yield investment vehicle, Marcus said, reciting the line Sterling had fed him. I was protecting our assets. Protecting them, Victoria said, by wiring them to a shell company called Emerald Consulting. Yes, it's a holding firm. And who owns Emerald Consulting, Mr. Vance? Marcus hesitated. A bead of sweat appeared on his hairline. I believe it is managed by a third party. Victoria stopped pacing. She looked directly at him. Mr. Vance, you are under oath. If you lie to this court, you commit perjury. Do you own Emerald Consulting? No, Marcus said firmly. Does your wife own it? No. Then who does? I don't know the specific principal. Marcus lied again. Victoria smiled. It was a terrifying smile. No further questions for this witness at this time, Your Honor. But I would like to call my next witness immediately to clarify the ownership of Emerald Consulting. Proceed, Judge Harrison said. I call Jessica Miller. The blood drained from Marcus's face so fast it looked like he might faint. He whipped his head around toward the double doors at the back of the courtroom. Charles Sterling dropped his pen. They hadn't deposed Jessica. They thought she was in Cabo. Marcus had paid for her ticket specifically to get her out of town. But the doors opened, and Jessica walked in. She looked nothing like the girl in the viral video. The red dress was gone, replaced by a modest gray suit. Her hair was pulled back. She looked young, scared, but angry. She walked past the defense table. Marcus hissed, "Just don't," under his breath. "Mr. Vance, one more word, and you will be gagged," Judge Harrison snapped. Jessica took the stand. Her hands were shaking as she took the oath. "Ms. Miller," Victoria asked gently, "do you know the defendant?" "Yes," Jessica whispered. "I was his mistress for 2 years." The gallery erupted in whispers. The judge banged the gavel. "Quiet, go on." "And do you own a company called Emerald Consulting?" "Yes," Jessica said. "Marcus set it up for me. He told me it was for tax purposes. And did Mr. Vance transfer money into this account?" "Yes, about $200,000 over the last year." "Did he tell you where the money came from?" Jessica took a deep breath. She looked at Elena, then at Marcus. "He told me it was Hyde money. He said he was slowly draining the joint accounts so that when he finally left his wife, she would get nothing. He called it Project Clean Sweep. He said Elena was too stupid to notice." Elena gasped. Even expecting it, hearing it out loud was a physical blow. Victoria placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. "He said she was too stupid?" Victoria asked, letting the words hang in the air. "Yes." "And he said," Jessica's voice broke, "he said he didn't want the baby. He told me on the night of the birth when he saw the missed calls. He said, 'Maybe nature will take care of the problem for me.'" A collective gasp of horror sucked the air out of the room. Even the seasoned reporters looked sick. Marcus stood up, slamming his hands on the table. "She's lying!" Marcus screamed, his composure shattering completely. "She's a gold-digging whore. I cut her off, and now she's trying to ruin me. Sit down." The bailiff moved closer to Marcus. "Ms. Miller," Victoria continued, raising her voice over the commotion. "Do you have proof of these conversations?" "Yes." Jessica reached into her purse and pulled out a plastic evidence bag containing a smartphone. "Marcus gave me a burner phone to communicate with him so Elena wouldn't see the bills. I kept it. It has every text, every wire transfer confirmation, and every email." Victoria took the bag and walked it to the judge's bench. "Your Honor, I would like to submit this into evidence as Exhibit B. We have a digital forensic report verifying the sender is Mr. Vance." Judge Harrison took the bag. She looked at Marcus with an expression of pure disdain. "Mr. Sterling, your client's credibility is evaporating by the second. Do you have a defense for this?" Sterling looked defeated. He wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. "Your Honor, we request a recess to review this new evidence." "Denied," Judge Harrison barked. "We are finishing this today." Victoria turned back to the court. "Your Honor, we have established adultery. We have established fraud. But Mr. Sterling claims his client is a loving father who is being unfairly kept from his son. To address that, I have one final piece of evidence. Exhibit C." Victoria signaled to the court clerk. The large monitors mounted on the walls flickered to life. "This video was recorded 3 days ago," Victoria explained. "Inside the marital home where Mr. Vance entered in violation of the temporary restraining order." The video began. It was high-definition footage from the nanny cam hidden in the bookshelf. The audio was crystal clear. Marcus appeared on screen, pacing aggressively. Elena stood by the desk. "You won't get custody," the on-screen, Marcus sneered. His face twisted in a way the court hadn't seen yet. "You have a history of depression, Elena. Remember postpartum with the miscarriage 2 years ago? I have the records. I'll paint you as unstable. I'll say you're unfit. I'll take the kid, and I'll have Jessica raise him." In the courtroom, the silence was absolute. It was the silence of a grave. The cruelty of the threat to use a woman's grief over a lost child to take her living child away was so profound that it paralyzed the room. The video continued. "Get out." Marcus Elena's voice on the recording was steady. "This isn't over. I always win, Elena. Remember that. The shark always wins." The screen went black. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Marcus sat slumped in his chair, staring at the blank monitor. He knew. He finally knew that the trap had snapped shut. Judge Harrison slowly took off her glasses. She placed them on the bench. She didn't look at the lawyers. She looked directly at Marcus Vance. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "In family court, we see broken people, we see mistakes, we see people falling out of love. But rarely, very rarely, do we see pure malice." Marcus tried to stand up to speak, but his legs wouldn't work. "You didn't just cheat on your wife," the judge continued, her voice rising in intensity. "You stole from your child. You abandoned your family during a medical crisis. And then you conspired to weaponize the legal system and the mental health history of the mother to inflict further abuse." "Your Honor, I was angry," Marcus croaked. "You were cruel," Judge Harrison snapped, slamming her hand on the bench. "And you are arrogant. You thought you could come into my courtroom, smile, wear a nice suit, and lie to my face. You thought you could buy your way out of moral bankruptcy." She picked up her pen. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. Elena Vance is granted sole legal and physical custody of the minor child, Leo Vance. Mr. Vance, your parental rights are hereby suspended, pending a psychiatric evaluation, though I doubt you will ever see that child unsupervised again." "Please," Marcus whimpered. "He's my son." "He is not your son," Judge Harrison said coldly. "He is a prop you tried to purchase. Regarding the assets, I am ordering a full forensic audit. Every penny you funneled to Ms. Miller, every dollar you hid in the Cayman Islands will be returned to the marital estate. You will leave this marriage with nothing, Mr. Vance, because that is exactly what you invested in it." Marcus put his head in his hands. But the nightmare wasn't over. Judge Harrison looked toward the back of the room where 2 uniformed sheriff's deputies and a man in a trench coat were waiting. Furthermore, the judge said, "It has come to the court's attention via the testimony regarding the burner phone that there is evidence of tax evasion and wire fraud." "Detective, are you ready?" The man in the trench coat stepped forward. "Yes, Your Honor." "Mr. Vance," Judge Harrison said, "you are remanded into the custody of the Seattle Police Department. Your bail is revoked due to flight risk evidenced by your offshore accounts." "What?" Marcus bolted up. "You can't arrest me here. This is civil court." "You committed perjury in my presence, and you admitted to fraud on tape," Judge Harrison said. "Get him out of my sight." The deputies moved in fast. Marcus scrambled backward, knocking his chair over. "Charles, do something!" he screamed at his lawyer. Charles Sterling began packing his briefcase. "I'm an estate lawyer, Marcus. You need a criminal defense attorney, and considering your assets are frozen, I don't think you can afford me anymore." The handcuffs clicked a sharp metallic sound that echoed through the room. The Shark of Seattle was dragged from the defense table, struggling and shouting. "Elena, Elena, tell them I'm the father. You can't do this to me." Elena stood up slowly. She watched the man she had married, the man she had thought was her partner, being hauled away like a common criminal. She felt a phantom pain in her C-section scar, a reminder of what she had survived. She walked to the railing as they dragged him past. "Marcus," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through his screaming instantly. He stopped fighting for a second, looking at her with wild, desperate eyes. "El, please." You said the shark always wins, Elena said, her voice shaking with the release of a year's worth of pain. But you forgot one thing. Sharks die if they stop moving. And you're done. The deputies shoved him through the side door. His wails echoed from the hallway until the heavy door slammed shut, leaving the courtroom in a stunned, heavy silence. Judge Harrison looked at Elena. Her expression softened. Mrs. Vance, go home to your son. Elena nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. She walked down the center aisle. The reporters shouted questions. Elena, how do you feel? What will you do now? Do you have a comment on Jessica? Elena didn't stop. She didn't look at the cameras. She pushed through the double doors and stepped out onto the courthouse steps. The rain had stopped. For the first time in weeks, the gray clouds over Seattle were breaking, and a shaft of pale, clean sunlight was hitting the wet pavement. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the cold air. She took out her phone and deleted the contact, hubby. Then she dialed the only number that mattered. Hi, Maya, she said, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Not tears of sadness, but of relief. I'm coming home. It's over. So 6 months later, the spring had finally come to the Pacific Northwest. The cherry blossoms were exploding in pink confetti along the streets of Bellevue. The colonial house on Oak Drive was sold. It had too many ghosts. Elena now lived in a sun-drenched cottage near the water on Bainbridge Island. It was smaller, cozier, and filled with light. She sat on the back deck, a mug of tea in her hand, watching the ferry boats cut across the sound. On a blanket spread out on the grass, a 6-month-old baby was busy trying to eat his own toes. Leo was a chunk of a baby, healthy, happy, and loud. He had dark curls and bright, curious eyes. He had no idea that his father was currently sitting in a cell at the Washington State Penitentiary, serving the first year of a 7-year sentence for wire fraud and embezzlement. Marcus called, sometimes collect. Elena never accepted the charges. Jessica had moved back to Ohio. She had sent a letter of apology a month ago. Elena had burned it in the fireplace without reading it. She didn't need apologies. She needed peace. The sliding door opened, and Maya walked out carrying a bowl of popcorn. You know, Maya said, sitting down next to her sister. I saw the news today. Marcus is trying to appeal. Elena didn't flinch. She took a sip of tea. Let him try. Victoria Stone is still on retainer. He has no money, no allies, and no credibility. You're tough, Elle, Maya said admiringly. I don't know how you did it. Elena looked at Leo. He rolled over, let out a squeal of triumph, and looked up at his mother with a gummy, joyous smile. She remembered the night in the hospital, the blood, the fear, the feeling of dying. She remembered the moment she realized she was alone. And she remembered the moment she realized that being alone didn't mean being weak. I didn't do it for me, Elena said softly. She put her tea down and walked over to the blanket. She scooped Leo up, holding him tight against her chest, smelling the scent of baby lotion and sunshine. I did it because I'm a mother, she whispered into his soft hair. And nobody hurts my boy. Leo cooed, grabbing a fistful of her hair. Elena laughed, a genuine full sound that drifted out over the water. The storm was over. The shark was gone. And the water was calm. Talk about a roller coaster. Marcus Vance really thought he was untouchable. It's terrifying to think about how close he came to getting away with it if Elena hadn't trusted her gut, if Maya hadn't stormed that club, and if that nanny cam hadn't been recording this story. Could have had a very different, much darker ending. It just goes to show that arrogance is often the architect of a person's own destruction. Marcus was so busy building his empire and hiding his money that he forgot the most basic rule of life: you reap what you sow. He sowed betrayal, and he harvested a prison sentence. But the real hero here is Elena. To go through a traumatic birth, recover from surgery, and then fight a legal war while raising a newborn. That is a level of strength that deserves a standing ovation. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Do you think the 7-year sentence was enough? Or should Marcus have gotten more for endangering his child? And what about the mistress? Jessica, did she redeem herself by testifying? Or is she just as guilty? Let's get a debate going in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We drop new real-life drama stories every Tuesday and Friday. Next up, we have a story about a woman who found a secret room in her attic that her husband had been hiding for 20 years. And what was inside changed everything. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and remember, the truth always comes out eventually. See you next time.